Sharilla was 17 when she crashed her car, killing her boyfriend and their friend. Her parents insist it was an accident and not murder. They're now sharing details of Mackenzie's life in prison and fighting to clear her name.
Was I lenient on some things? Yes. Was I harder on some things? Yes. I was raising my kid how I felt best. I'm not a bad parent. I picked fights that I felt would help her, and I picked fights that I didn't want to fight with her, and I let her go.
But I know when my daughter lies. It's my daughter. And if that makes me a bad parent, you know. I'm not a bad parent. I did my best with my daughters. I tried to teach them rather than punish them. This world's crazy, you know, and there's some crazy stuff that goes on. There's some crazy people in this world.
How much of our behaviors are influenced by our parents? We especially like to ask this question whenever a child, teen, or young adult commits a horrific crime. We stop to ask, okay, let's look at the parents and let's look into the familial background. In some cases, they go into hiding, which makes sense because they understand that everything that they say and do will be analyzed with extreme scrutiny. In other cases, the parents go on a press tour of sorts to help clear up the family name or change public perceptions of their child. I've worked with children and teens for the past 10 years, and I've always been interested in how different family dynamics affected their child's development. In education, we say, if you want to understand a child's behavior, meet the parents. Today, I wanted to look at the Shirillas, more specifically, Steve Shirilla. This will be a two-part series. In today's video, we'll focus on Steve, and then in the next video, part 2, we'll focus on Natalie and their effects on Mackenzie and Danielle as parents. And we're going to use a combination of evidence, text messages, interviews, police interrogations, and the Netflix documentary to see if we can form an analysis on the inner workings of this family dynamic. Some disclaimers before we begin. I am not a psychologist, nor am I a criminal journalist. I just find the conversation of family dynamics, childhood development, and true crime very fascinating. So take my analysis as just commentary on the matter and not like a formal diagnosis. Also, I do not know the Shirillas personally, but I do believe through the numerous amount of interviews that they've done, I can come to some conclusions about their personalities, their beliefs, and their worldviews that helped shape Mackenzie into the woman that she is today. So let's get started. Every family has a leader, and this family has Steve. Prior to all of the events, Steve was a digital art teacher. He was married to Natalie Shirilla, who also worked in education, but I believe like a daycare center, and they had 2 daughters, Mackenzie and Danielle. Many of our first exposure to Steve was on the Netflix documentary, The Crash. So at first, Steve appears pretty solemn, sitting next to his wife, Natalie. I kind of want to start off by just analyzing his appearance, and it's not in a superficial way at all. It's more that I believe you can gather a lot of information in the way that somebody presents themselves, because your appearance is your first impression that you make to the world. Just right off the bat, you can kind of see his hair is like a little disheveled. He has like a scruffy looking beard, and he has a t-shirt that says the word boom in like comic like font. I just wanted to reference some other figures in this documentary, such as Davion's father in a crisp t-shirt and a little button up. And then we see the prosecutor, who is obviously going to wear his professional dress. You know, we can kind of speculate maybe Netflix did tell the Shirillas to dress comfortably. I just find it very interesting that this is the way that they are presenting themselves. Immediately, like right off the bat, Steve is sparking controversy, and he didn't even open his mouth yet. Many people began to point out how it wasn't really tasteful to wear a shirt that said boom on it on a documentary discussing a car crash that took 2 lives at the hands of your daughter. But to really understand Steve's personality, we have to look at how he responds to this obvious criticism.
Shirt that said boom in a documentary about a car crash.
No. Well, I wore a shirt that represented a YouTuber called Drip Drop from Crime Circus. And this guy, or this person on this YouTuber, has been supporting my daughter right from almost from day one. He puts posts up all the time saying that she's been mistreated and there was a lack of there was an injustice involved, and he puts all kind of stuff out there. He's been an advocate for the past 3.5 years. So it was my way of saying thanks
We're going to see a consistent pattern with Steve that he doesn't apologize and he doesn't empathize or put himself in the perspective of other people. He's very quick to his defense and he's very quick with denials. But it's actually more troubling the fact that this was an intentional act. Like, he specifically chose this shirt. He was that tone deaf. Another thing is, I went on Circus Crime's merch website and he has a lot of shirts that have different designs. It's just very interesting that Steve chose the one that said boom. Before I go any further, I also want to say that I think it's very important for us to not only just like analyze the family dynamics and kind of see what is very like harmful and not repeat those patterns, but also just like reflecting on ourselves. And we're going to look at Steve today, Steve Shirilla, and he's obviously very extreme on a lot of these negative behaviors. But I do think to some extent we all exhibit behaviors of denying when we're criticized or lack of empathy of just trying to put ourselves in the other person's perspective. So I like to think of it as how can I grow from this story and how can I challenge myself to grow in emotional maturity. But let's continue looking at Steve and his family beliefs and his family values that ended up bringing his family to the spotlight in such a negative way. So one thing that I found particularly interesting is how Steve says that Mackenzie was mature at 17. She was practically living at Dom's house. She was smoking weed almost daily, and she was also drinking underage.
She seemed mature enough to handle it. I didn't see an issue. It wasn't causing her to be late for this or not do this or get in an accident.
Okay, you did it your way. 17-year-old living outside the house with a 20-year-old, unusual. Do you still feel that way?
I knew she was smoking weed. I didn't know she was making videos and in the car. That's the stuff I found out after the fact.
So I do understand that your level of understanding maturity will be skewed if you yourself are immature. Mackenzie having a boyfriend does not make her mature. It just makes her an immature girl with a boyfriend. Steve doesn't realize that maturity isn't marked by doing adult behaviors such as having a boyfriend or sleeping over with him, doing drugs, drinking. Maturity is actually deemed by healthy communication and emotional regulation and delayed gratification. And so far, the patriarch of the family is having difficulties with demonstrating those behaviors himself. So no wonder he deems Mackenzie mature because she has a boyfriend and smokes weed and drinks. It makes sense to him. So he, as her father, obviously gave her a lot of freedoms when it came to smoking weed and drinking. And I do think that it was partially influenced because of the fact that he also participates in those activities. And I'm not saying that that's across the board for all parents that participate in smoking and drinking, but I do think for Steve, for sure.
I knew she smoked dope. I don't have a problem with her smoking dope. I don't have a problem with me smoking. I don't have a problem with you smoking it. If you're going to take a drug, that's the one I believe you should take. I'm sorry if I find marijuana not that dangerous as I find alcohol or cocaine.
Mackenzie asked him, "You want weed peanut butter?" And he says, "No, LOL, I don't like to eat my weed," insinuating that he ingests it other ways. Mackenzie asks, "Where did you put that vodka?" He says, "On the counter where I showed it to you, LOL." And I do think that participating in these activities such as smoking and drinking at such a young age stunts you from developing the life skills and the coping mechanisms of dealing with your hard emotions. And we see that Mackenzie smoked almost daily, and she also struggled with a lot of anxiety and a lot of like anger and a lot of frustration. And it seems like weed was her coping mechanism. The conversation when it comes to weed, especially, there's a debate, weed is not addictive like physiologically or biologically, but I do think that there's something to be said that weed can be addictive behaviorally, because if every time you face a hard emotion, a difficult emotion, you turn to a substance, you're not regulating yourself correctly. And we see adults also have the same difficulties and issues with that. And perhaps that's what Steve himself is doing. He has a hard time regulating his own emotions. Steve's approach to parenting is that he can't lock Mackenzie in a room or keep her from doing delinquent activities. She has to learn for herself.
I was on my daughter all the time. I punished her all the time. Okay, it's not me going, okay, just go have a whole time, go smoke dope, have fun, woo, drive your car really fast. If I would have hammered her and locked her into her room, what am I supposed to do? Chain her to the bed? Okay. All I can do is teach her how to survive and live.
You know, she was almost an adult. You know, she's almost 18 at that point. You know, my daughter was a lot like me. I learned things by doing them, and rather than being told, don't touch the stove. You know, I had to go touch the stove to figure out that it was hot, not that I was told that it was hot. You know, it's that kind of an analogy, I guess.
Well, yeah, Steve, at this point, at 17 years old, it's a little late for that. But you've had 17 years to teach your child what is good and what is bad, what is right and what is wrong, so that you can hopefully help your child to avoid unnecessary pain that perhaps you went through that your child doesn't also have to go through. That's the whole point of parenting. His view on parenting is exactly why Mackenzie is in the spot that she is in today. Steve's perception of maturity is actually just masking his approach to lazy parenting. This idea that Mackenzie can just figure it out. Dominic and Mackenzie experienced a pressure that was so intense in their relationship. And this is just a personal belief, but I think teen dating can be dangerous for this reason. We have young kids who are essentially playing house, having intimacy, yet lack the healthy communication skills, the emotional regulation skills, just overall relationship skills and life skills. They're not just going to figure that out, Steve. This is like a ticking time bomb that's bound to explode. Lazy parenting sees freedom as beneficial for both parties. The kids learn hard and fast, and the parents get to be absent, emotionally uninvested, and self-involved. Mackenzie sought in Dom what she could not find in her parents.
Like before, you lied. You lied and said you would never lock me out of the house again. That is why we got back together last time we broke up. But I forgot. You can never broke up with me earlier. Word.
You at 17 should not be having arguments with your significant other that's causing you to not know where you're going to sleep at night. And that is just the environment that Mackenzie's parents created for her. Their 17-year-old daughter should not feel like that because she's relying on Dom to a level that's just not healthy at their age. I think the weakest, most repulsive thing that Steve has said as a father was referring to Dom as loaded.
And he had hundreds of dollars on him at all time. We went to dinner and he pulls out, he fanned out, you know, more money.
Did you ask him, like, where'd you get that money?
I knew.
Even in the Netflix documentary, he said that. And I was just like, yuck, Steve, stop it right there.
The boy wasn't hurting for money. Okay. And I think that helped Mackenzie a little bit because Mackenzie likes things.
Because are you insinuating that he had money so that he could take care of Mackenzie? Are you insinuating that Dominic, at 20 years old, could better take care of your daughter? And all we can do is feel bad at this point because poor Dom, 20 years old, in the past 4 years of his life has been so stressful, essentially taking on the parental role of caring for Mackenzie. Mackenzie was relying on Dom for her emotional regulation, for her support, source of everything, for her attention, for everything. She was relying on Dom for everything.
He couldn't even come next door to eat his mom's dinner half the time because Kenzie would cry about how her food would have to be like gluten-free, everything, like all that, you know? And as a 20-year-old kid, and he's like the man, you know, he's cooking for her every single night. And then also, like, even just in terms of, like, relationship, not even, like, anything to do with anything else, I witnessed so many times him saying to her, like, I cook for you every night. Can you at least just, like, clean some stuff or like, do the dishes? And then she'd be, like, make it, like, a thing. Like, this is, like, one of the things where I'm saying, like, she's petty.
She claimed she had a gluten-free problem or something. And I would make dinner, and then I would be questioned on, was the stuff okay for her diet because her stomach, and if I didn't have everything that would have complied with her stomach diet, whatever it was, I never believed it, he would cook for her separate, always. And she's a slob. She never cleaned. Her mother's house is a slob. My house isn't the greatest either, but I'm just saying, it's just, you know, if Dom's gonna cook for you, do the dishes, clean up after yourself. Do you know what I mean? that sort of a thing. But everything was always about her. I mean, like I said, even with her parents. Do you know what I'm saying? But Kenzie, I mean, Dom took her to Polaris. Dom made sure she made it to school. Mom didn't do any of that, okay? So it was all Dom.
That's why I asked. It seemed like he catered to her a lot.
Right.
They were always
Well,
going
that's
out
what I said.
to
What do you do?
eat.
Yeah,
They were
what do you do for him?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Was
Right.
my thing. Like, you know, he waits on you hand and full. What are you doing for him? I did start that a lot lately.
Mackenzie's parents allowed that to happen. And they knew it was happening, and they were okay with it happening. Steve was okay with Dom taking care of Mackenzie because he didn't want to deal with the high-strung, disrespectful, self-absorbed daughter that he created. My best example of Steve's inability to control Mackenzie is in this text exchange about the McDonald's bag. You are never driving my car again. Disgusting. We're not going to use the curse words here. Don't eat fast food in my car, then leave the trash in my car. Disgusting. Also, maybe try putting it back the way it was when you left. Don't take my steering wheel off if you're not going to put it back on. You're done. First, our car that we pay for. Secondly, don't speak to me like this. Sorry, it was just a bag. OMG, grow up. Third, I'll drive that car when and wherever I want. If you can find the keys. So no, you will not be driving my car anymore. You can ask for my permission though, and then maybe you can. But I'm just letting you know. Disrespectful. Again, my car that you use. If you want to be treated with respect, how about you give it to other people? This girl is so, like, she lacks any form of self-reflection, and she gets it from her father, though. Steve's like, ditto. And she says, have fun in your closet when you get home. Your trash is in there. Steve, my guy. Steve, you just gonna let her steamroll you like that? And he, like, this isn't even, like, a conversation that would be continued over text, you know what I mean? Like, there's a point in which you stop and, like, real life happens. Like, we shouldn't even be responding by text anymore at this point. And he says, if I was you, I'd think twice before you piss me off, and then you won't have a car, period. And I just feel like all of his threats are so empty and so weak. Like, she literally could care less because he doesn't seem or appear as if he follows through with anything. When you start making car payments and insurance payments, until then, you can keep your disrespectful tone and words to yourself. Steve cannot manage or control Mackenzie. This causes a lot of the mental challenges that she faced. Like, she was obsessive, self-absorbed, like, she could not emotionally regulate at all. This is the result of little to no parenting. Working in education, I realized something pretty pivotal. Children actually love boundaries, structure. They love knowing what's expected of them because they're able to relax and understand, like, okay, these are my expectations, like, these are my boundaries. Like, kids actually thrive on structure. They also like having consistent reward systems, consistent discipline systems, things that don't change. You can see more negative behaviors in children when there's inconsistent discipline structures. Like, one day this is bad, but the next day it's okay. Or one day this is how you get punished, and the next day there's no follow through. When those things aren't in place, like, I could clearly see it. Like, it was clear as day. The different classrooms, how children responded to the different, teaching styles and the different discipline styles and the different classroom management styles. Children become more defiant and have more behaviors when they don't know what's expected of them. This is Steve, right? Would you do me a favor tonight, please? I won't ground you next time you piss me off. Like, Steve, that's not how discipline works, dude. You can reward her, but, like, doing something bad is something bad, and you need a consistent discipline for that. What is this? And also, his threats are so weak. Did you just call me dumb? She called him dumb. Because this storm is coming for you. I'd go hide. I'm, like, cringing that this is an actual father, like a grown man texting his daughter, after she's being disrespectful. It's odd, it's weird, it's sad. So many emotions. Steve's lack in involvement in Mackenzie's development, he wants to think that it's because of his parenting style, this figure it out parenting style, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Parents who have low emotional intelligence, they struggle to see reality and they struggle to be objective. They're not interested in facts. They're only interested in, the reality as they see it. And they will distort, dismiss, or deny anything that you would call reality that they don't like. And that phrase is actually from Lindsay C. Gibson's book, Emotionally Immature Parents. And I saw so much of what she was saying in the Shirillas, of how they just lack self-reflection.
Do you blame yourself for your daughter's behavior?
Do I blame myself? Could I have advised her better? Sure. Do I think it would have made any difference? I don't know. I don't have I'm sorry. I don't have a problem with the marijuana use. I'm sorry. I just don't. It's a battle that I would never win. How am I stopping her? Was I going to lock her in her room and never let her out of the room? Was I supposed to go with her everywhere she goes? Could I took the car away? There's just so many factors that had nothing to do with it.
I'm Judge Steve. I'm not judging you or your wife, but I don't know how much of the audience are parents, but you and I both know, as does your wife, the answer to every suggestion you just made is yes, that's what we do. I told you not to drink with your friends. You drank. Now you're not going out. Oh, you did it again. Now you can't drive. Oh, you did it again. Now you're not going anywhere for a week.
We have grounded her. And
that's why parenting can suck. That's why we're not their friends.
I agree. Totally agree. I've taken her door off her room. I've taken her phone, all her electronics. This kid is not unpunished. Okay.
And he's realized that it's a lot easier to blame the world for all of your problems than to self-reflect and look inward. What can you do better? What can you change? What role did you play in all of this?
I think it's a fix. I think it's a favor. That last name, Russo, in this town. This is a political family, and I apologize to the Flanagan family right now. If it was just Davion in the car, she wouldn't be in jail. It would have never left the juvenile court. This has to do with the boy's last name. And the judge saying, well, I don't have a blood relationship. Look, I'm not saying she has got a blood relationship. I'm saying she has relationships with the Russo family. And Christine Russo was part of that prosecutor's office at one point. And I believe she's friends with Tim Troop. I think they were in the office together. And the detective. I don't know how that guy has his job. I don't know how he became a detective.
She had one day for defense. He did one day and he didn't do much during her trial. It just wasn't there. I don't know what he was thinking. In my opinion, this man should never be allowed in a courtroom again.
Do you think the documentary filmmakers had an agenda? Do you think that they were out?
I believe they did.
It is literally everybody else's fault. The judge, the prosecutor, the defense team, the Russos. It's literally everyone else's fault except his own.
The prosecution's case is based on lies and
all
the
right,
narrative.
That's your opinion. What I'm saying is that's what the trial is for.
I think it's fact. I think it's fact.
They only see reality in the way that they want to see it and not how we objectively see facts. Like, this is bad, Steve. Your parenting style of just figuring it out for her, it didn't work. And just be honest. Be honest with yourself. They live in delusion, and it's hard to speak truth into that. I think family is given so that that's your first landing place. You have siblings or you have your parents to kind of call out bad behavior before you go into the world, before you go into society, because your friends or coworkers or the law enforcement officer is not going to have the same level of grace with calling out bad behavior. You're going to have real world consequences for bad behavior, and it should start in the family. You can have a father, like physically present in the home, but if he's not emotionally present or emotionally involved, it is almost like the same as not having a father at all. When you look at children who grow up without a father in the home, we see an increase in these delinquent behaviors, such as smoking, skipping school, low and poor performance on grades. And these are statistics that have just been shown that being raised in a two-parent household is obviously more beneficial. This case is like the perfect caveat this is the exclusion. It's like you can have a father physically in the home, but if he's not mentally and emotionally and spiritually present, it's almost like he's not even there. See, Mackenzie's track record is like synonymous to like children who don't have a father in the home. And that is so sad. I do think that Americans, we tend to blame every single character flaw that we have on our parents. And we do have to do the internal work of realizing that you can also grow from it. You don't have to repeat all of the bad behaviors that you saw. I am not going to say Mackenzie had absolutely no opportunity to try to be better than her parents, but I will say that the environment that they created was like the perfect storm. In part 2, we're going to talk more about Natalie. We're going to wrap up the series and talk about how this dynamic with Steve and Natalie, how it affected Mackenzie and her sister, Danielle. If you liked today's video and you would like to see the next one, make sure that you subscribe. Hopefully this video was insightful for you, and hopefully that you're able to learn and grow from it. Leave your thoughts down below, and I will see you guys in part 2. Have a great rest of your day, guys. Bye.